Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be talking about some of the outstanding issues concerning this convention and how it will impact the business, the operational cost and the insurance cost. Starting with compliance issues, as was said earlier, we need 35% of the world tonnage to have ratified this convention. We're almost there. Almost 33% of the world tonnage has ratified. Entry into force is imminent and is likely to be in 2016. It's therefore important for ship owners to get ready, especially when you know that it's been estimated it will take between 6 and 12 months from selecting an equipment to installing this equipment. So it's a long process. There's an issue concerning shipyards. Will they have sufficient capacity? Now, the revised compliance dates spread the entry into force over a 5-period year. But bear in mind there are 57,000 ships that need to comply. There is a serious risk of bottleneck. There is a risk of doing nothing, and if your ship fails to comply, then you might be penalized with restricted trading areas. Your crew will have to be trained. Ballast water treatment system can be very complex and involve biological, chemical, and physical parts. And if the crew is not confident when they meet with the port state control, then it might lead to a more detailed inspection. Talking of the equipment, the cost of the equipment range between 1 and 5 million for the equipment alone. There will be the installation cost, loss of use, cost of training on top of it. The main issue is whether the equipment will work. There seems to be a lack of confidence in the industry that the equipment will work in all water conditions. The regulation refers to 10 viable microorganisms of 50 microns per cubic meters. So we're really talking about microscopic organism here. And the standards also refer to microbes concentration. So far, 36 equipments have received the approval of the IMO. Other equipments are being developed or waiting approval. The fact that, when the IMO gives its approval, tests are carried, but not in all water conditions. As we all know, ships can go upriver, and judging by the color of some of the rivers in Southeast Asia, which look like my morning cup of tea, or in Europe, more like perhaps vegetable soup, will the equipment be able to treat these waters? The fact that a system has been approved by IMO doesn't mean that it will comply with the standards for and under all conditions and throughout the life of the ship. As was said earlier, thanks to the lobbying of INTERTANKO, these guidelines will be reviewed and the robustness of the approval system will be reviewed further by the IMO. And those who have installed the early movers will not be penalized. The other issue concerning the equipment is that they are not future compliance. Manufacturers can guarantee that the equipment will work as described, but they cannot guarantee that the samples will be compliant. The manufacturer's warranties are usually for 1 year only, which is quite short. Furthermore, both the US and the IMO regulations will be reviewed and are likely to be more stringent in the future. It's unclear whether an approved system can be modified or upgraded to comply with future more stringent standards. Any attempt to upgrade an approved system can affect its approved status. The IMO has not addressed these issues, but the manufacturers have extended the warranty periods or the advice and the repairs after the warranty period. There are still some scientific and technological issues to overcome. I've listed a few of these issues here, just to mention a couple. Obviously, if you use a mechanical filter, the mesh size will reduce the pressure. Some organisms might be able to regrow or repair themselves, and some organisms might be able to absorb the UV lights. Scientists are still working on these solutions, but given the technological and the scientific issues still outstanding, is the convention really ready to come into force? Issues concerning Sampling. Now, there are a very large volume of water in ballast tanks, and the organisms within these tanks are not evenly distributed. Concentrations can vary over time, and there is no uniform international regulation on how to obtain a truly representative sample of the ballast water. The same applies to testing these samples. There is no ISO standards for testing these samples, which might lead to some unpredictable and potentially unfair outcomes for ship owners. There is some comfort in the fact that the IMO has granted a trial period after the entry into force for 2 or 3 years, during which they're going to be lenient with ship owners. The Convention also does not address how a ship owner can challenge a finding of non-compliance. Sanctions. Each state will enforce the sanctions. For Greece, for example, which has ratified the Convention, it will enforce it against the Greek flags and ships entering Greek waters. But can ship owners expect sanctions to be enforced in a uniform manner? As was said earlier, there were some guidelines that were given to the port state authorities by the IMO, and there is now in place a 4-stage inspection process, starting with looking at the logs and the paperwork, and if there is any doubt, looking as to whether the equipment works, and then perhaps a more detailed analysis with samples being taken. But the guidelines to the port state controls say that they should not detain the ship unless there is a clear violation of the Convention. It's unclear what sort of sanctions can be applied. Can they stop the discharge? Can they impose fines? Can they detain the ship, or perhaps the master in extreme circumstances? There's also some contractual issues when it comes to the Convention. Under a time charter party, it's the owner's obligation to comply with the international regulations. Contracts will have to be reviewed to address these issues and share the risks between owners and charterers. If the ship is delayed, obviously, who's going to pay for the delays? You should foresee off-hire and demurrage disputes. BIMCO is presently working on a draft ballast water management and sampling clause, but the final wording is not out there yet. So in conclusion, I will say that the Convention will undoubtedly lead to an increase in operational cost and an increase in insurance cost, fine, potential involvement of correspondent and lawyers, etc. My last slide is a wish list of all the outstanding issues. I will conclude by saying that the 3 years trial period which has been granted by the IMO should hopefully allow these issues to be clarified. And if these issues are not clarified, hopefully the IMO will grant a further trial period beyond that. Thank you.